Dr. Mark, here we are on how can you dominate your market niche, your field, your specialty, to rock your profits. So let's go through some of these points that we want to make sure people know. The first one that I was amazed at when I first saw it, how things have grown these days. And if you want to follow right along with us here in the handout that you've been able to download,
Right.
is it about 80%, just in round numbers, 80% of people will go now online to double check something, and about 80% of those, if they find anything negative, they'll go elsewhere.
That's right. This was a Harris poll study that was done, and I believe it was 78% said that they would check online, and 74%, I think, if I remember right, said that they would not do business with somebody if they did not find positive information about them. And I think there was a whole lot more that wouldn't do business with you if they found negative information.
Oh, that's right.
So,
And these days, it's very easy to find that negative.
That's
So
right.
we're going to go over some of the ways to create, we call that create your own legend now, so that that profile, that internet identity, that online profile is as strong as you can have it, so that when people do search you, because that is what they're doing before they come to work with anybody,
Exactly.
they're searching online. So
Well, and it raises a couple of questions about how we look, when people do search for us. I mean, first of all, a question that we have is, how do you look in your economic mirror these days? I mean, we're in a pretty rough economy for an awful lot of professions. I was just talking with my brother, who's a medical doctor, and he said for the past 4 years, there's been a steady decline, actually. They're working harder and getting paid less because of insurance reimbursements, things like that. It's rough all around. So how do you look when you talk to your, the mirror that your accountant is holding up to the health of your business, the health of your practice?
what you're feeling in your wallet or your pocketbook, what are you feeling these days? Is it happening? And are you just going to sit by and allow it to happen to you? Or are you going to take some proactive moves? And that's really what we're all about here, right?
Absolutely.
So there's your first mirror. That second one would be, what do you look like to Google? Now, when we say Google, because Google is that 500-pound gorilla.
Well, and what we really mean is in
All the search
using
engines.
in using Google, what do you look like to the searching public?
Right.
That is, hitting those search engines, typing in those keywords, searching for a solution to their problem. And if they are coming across you, and that's part of the agenda, is making sure that they're going to be coming
Exactly.
across you. But if they come across you, what do you look like? And do you look the way you want to look?
And let's make clear, keywords. Those are the terms that people would use when they're searching to solve a problem. The ones that they would find you by putting those terms in. So those are what keywords are. So what do you look like when somebody has searched for you? And what are they finding? So we want to go over things like that. And then there's really a third thing that we want to make sure people are thinking about, right? We can call that the large group or the mergers and acquisitions syndrome.
That's right, the industrialization of all our professions lately. I mean, have you been swallowed up by a larger company? Are you working for such a large group that your individual expertise is kind of getting whitewashed over, and you're just becoming a commodity, essentially. You're becoming whatever the label of your profession is. If am I just a psychologist? Am I just a physician? Am I just an accountant? Or do I have a depth of expertise that I want to really show on that online identity? I want people to search and say, no, I got to do business with that person.
Right. We want to make sure that happens for you, because there may be other doctors in that big corporate where that big company where the corporation has come in and taken over hospital after hospital, or you're part of a law firm that now has branches in all kinds of different cities, and there are other people in there that kind of look like you. You still want to make sure that they're going to you. The company side of it may just be doing the overall marketing and saying, oh, come to us, the big brother will handle everything, and then you're being left out. So we're going to cover some more things there too. And I'm flipping my page now in my my outline. So what is your online identity? And do people feel a connection with you when they find something about you online? Are you recognized as a solution to whatever the difficulty, the problem that they have there?
Do they immediately feel that connection, and they feel like they know, like, and trust you, and you're the person they want to really do business with because you've found a way to reassure them before they've ever met you?
Are they finding something that's just neutral about you? Well, neutral is saying, oh, he's really, really, really average. Well, you're not going to go to somebody like that.
Right.
You talk to your neighbor who says, you know, you want to make sure it's good, positive statements about you.
Yeah, or really, really absent if they're not finding anything. But God forbid they do that search and they find some negative reviews about you online. They find that, you know, one of these review sites like Angie's List, where people are really being, you know, through their marketing, they're really pushing people to get on there and put reviews about you. And let's face it, people are much more motivated to put negative information out there than positive.
Absolutely.
So if they find that, that's a whole different
My
conversation.
own doctor was talking to me the other day about Angie's List. And so it's
Yeah.
clear that it's happening. It used to be plumbers and electricians. Now it's doctors and
Exactly.
lawyers and all the professions.
But the key thing is, if you're not online, if you're not building this online identity, you're becoming progressively more and more invisible to the searching public, because that's where they're going. I mean, they're going to Facebook, they're going to
Right.
Google, they're going to YouTube, and that's become the common square in our society at this point. That's where people are talking.
So one of the big questions, what is a professional to do in this era of tweets going around the world and Facebook
Sure.
posts and governments toppling and, you know, these social media marketing sites being so important? What's a professional to do? And that's what we're going to be covering here.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
This is the new currency, as we
it
say.
is the new currency, and we don't want that to be cut off. So one of the things that we have listed here as well is you have a lot of expertise. Marketing may not be that expertise. You didn't spend, perhaps, all of your graduate school learning about marketing.
I sure didn't. You
Right?
know, I had to
But
learn it afterwards.
That's right. But these days, again, my doctor said to me, you know, when I got out of medical school and when I came to the practice, people just kept coming to us. The world's different now.
Sure is.
He's
yeah.
now into marketing, and we'll talk further about some of that now too. So we want to keep going here and make sure that we can tell you about the system. Again, we hope that you've got the outline that we're dealing with so that you can follow right along with us. There's more information than we could cover here, and we want to add new information from what this outline is going to be. So what is the system? If you've got this, you're going to see the 9 steps that we're going to give to you in detail as we get there further. So you're going to see that. But the main thing is that the goal is to have you to be the highly trained, celebrated expert. That's what you need to be these days.
Well, the fact is you already are. We know you are, because you wouldn't be speaking to us right now if you weren't. You've got that depth of expertise, but what we're talking about is how are you going to communicate to the searching public that you are the celebrated expert?
Right.
And that's about positioning you online, and that's what our system is designed to do for you.
Well, you know, Dr. Mark, some people would feel, and they hear the word expert, and it's one of those that they get, you know, the hairs on their back of their neck going, oh, I don't want to call myself an expert. How are we defining that?
I mean, you know, first of all, I would say anyone who's got an advanced degree is clearly an expert. That was the whole point of going to graduate school and getting that very expensive piece of paper.
Yes, don't we know?
And generally having to then pass licensing exams so that
Exactly.
the state in which you practice has also said that you are an expert and so forth. But we really use the model that Malcolm Gladwell so well, you know, outlined in his book Outliers, where he has done this research on the Bill Gates of the world and athletes and musicians, and really shown that there is this almost magical number of 10,000 hours to really become truly an expert. And I've sort of worked backwards and figured out that in general, 10,000 hours is about your average graduate program. If you have a doctoral degree or an advanced degree, it works out to be somewhere around 4 or 5 years of 40 hours a week worth of work. It adds up to be about your 10,000 hours. So
Right.
that's what we mean by an expert.
And that's how we're defining it for you. We know that we're not aiming the materials that we work on at somebody who's just starting out.
Right.
We're not looking for anybody who's beginning a career or starting over in a new one and all of a sudden wants to have, although our materials can apply
Well,
there.
exactly. I mean, it's not to say
It's
that
not who
this
we're-
is not exactly the same model that they would use. It's just not our focus, as we'll explain in a moment, because there is a backside to our business that really requires that expertise. But if you are just starting out, you absolutely can use this system. It's just not what our work focus tends to be.
So how do you achieve your online legend so that clients or patients will know that you are the one to get in touch with? Now, there are lots of other ways to do it from what we're
Certainly.
doing.
This is
right?
what we have done for
Right. This is our
ourselves.
way of
We've
doing it.
worked out this system, using a background of expertise, but then through our own trial and error and really refine what works, what has worked for us.
Right.
And we have come down to our 4 phases that we go through as, you know, in working with a client to have them replicate what we have done. So we
Right.
go through an assessment phase. So 4 things: assess, define, create, and monitor.
And we'll do those
That's what
in
we're gonna
depth
go
as
through.
we go forward here. But we need for you to develop and establish a powerful online brand. So when people go look for you, you know you're not a tube of toothpaste, you're not a bar of soap, but that's still a branding that we want to make sure that everything you do, say, act, the way you treat people when they come into your waiting room waiting to see you, it's all part of that. So we're going to build that online for you and help with that.
And then we want you to really dominate search results around the keywords, your name, your practice's name, and a few other keywords. We don't really want you just to be on page 1 of Google. I mean, a lot of online marketing, firms that you'll see out there, we guarantee to get you on page 1 of Google. Well, our philosophy with professionals, with experts, with people who are really trying to become that celebrated expert, it's much more about dominating several pages deep of content that you actually have put out there and control.
We want you to develop and communicate a compelling professional narrative, so that people can know who you are when they start reading about you. People say, "Oh, wait a minute, Dr. Mark, I don't have a legend. Do I have to make up stuff?" No.
This is about your story. We all have a story. We all have a journey that we have gone on as professionals to develop. You've got 10,000 hours worth of journey to tell people about.
Right.
So it's about telling people in story form so that it's memorable, and that's the key thing. We remember stories.
We do. And online, we create a steady stream of original multimedia content so that we can project that image of you.
Right.
So we're going to talk about video, we're going to talk about audio, we're going to talk about print, because that's what people can go and search. If it's all up in here for you and it isn't projected out there, it doesn't do any good.
Exactly. And the byproduct of that really is that it also becomes a very good protection for you. By dominating those search results and creating all of this original content that we're going to talk about, you are really shielding yourself from that negative potential content, those negative reviews and things like that, because you own those first several pages of Google, and those reviews are going to at least be out of view. We hope you don't get them in the first place, but you are building a kind of insurance, a kind of information protection around yourself so that you prove to the world around you the expert that you are and the character that you are.
And we want you to be able to control all that information. It isn't just aggregated from other people who can then later put a negative review of you. No, you're going to control this. So the one other thing that we're going to also come into here is what we call the shift.
And this is the part I was referring to before, which is why we focus on, kind of senior experts in their profession. People have been doing what they've been doing for a long time, as opposed to the person fresh out of school. Again, could apply to them as well, but we like it's where we are in our careers and our life. The fact is that you can now shift from being a service provider to actually mining the content of your own brain and creating products out of those, because it is the way that you can start scaling back having to work so many hours and still get paid. In fact, get paid, for one-time effort that's going to pay you repeatedly over time. So that's the shift.
Right, and you'll hear us refer to information products. A book is an information product. A CD, a DVD.
This recording
what
we're
you're
making
watching
is an information product.
Right, it's information being delivered. Sometimes it's delivered for free. Sometimes it's delivered to your patients or your clients. Sometimes you sell it.
Right.
So let's get into now the Create Your Own Legend Now system. And it is a system. System meaning you can set it up. You know what to do. It can run by itself for a lot of it. If there are problems, we can go back to the beginning and fix a few things and then have it continue to move. So
what we're going to go over is these 4 phases that we went over real quickly, just in outline form. So we're going to talk about assess, define, create, and monitor. So we're going to begin with assess.
We know we're aiming toward that big one, create, because we talked about all the content, and we're going to have 9 steps under there that we're going to take you through. But let's go on the assess. So what do we do in an assessment phase, Dr. Mark?
If you think about it, as a professional, everyone begins with an assessment phase. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever it is. Even if you're a landscaper, you start with an assessment.
Absolutely do.
You have to figure out what you're dealing with. So what we do is sit down and do these searches. Hit all these search engines and look at exactly what do you look like now. What's the starting point? Are you invisible? Are you full of information that's just these data aggregators who that you don't control? Do you have an active website that you're already building a good active presence with? Or, as we said, unfortunately, there are a growing number of people who are discovering negative information. So we need to know that.
And we know that the younger generation coming up now, with some of the things that's going on to Facebook and some of their own profiles, they're going to have a lot of negative they're going to have to deal with later.
Yeah, they're going to have some bad judgment to deal with later.
Well, they are. You know? They really are. The mid-career professional, at least at this point, probably doesn't have a lot of that.
We bypassed all that good stuff.
We did a great one in one of our blog posts before, and it was in a yearbook.
Right.
Well, there's some things written in yearbooks that we may not want to have out on the internet, but you close the yearbook, you put it on the shelf, it doesn't go out there.
The current generation's yearbook is wide open to the universe, and they are catching on, some a little too late, that those wild party pictures all over Facebook are not quite as secure as they thought they were.
That's right, because it's going to be there for a long time. So again, we want to look to see, what does it say about you out there? What do you get on the first page of Google? Again, Google is representing all the search engines. They're the 500-pound gorilla, but we mean all the search engines when we say that. So are you on the first page? Do you get up to page 3? Do you have up to 10 pages of material that you control? By the time we're finished here in the full process, we're going to recommend that you have 3 to 10 pages of Google search results that you control. And we're going to show you how to do that. But in this assessment phase, the first part's going to be an emergency one, a quick overview one for page 1. And then we want to go pages 3 to 10 to see how much else we find out.
And exactly. And we're in this assessment, it's like we're doing our diagnosis here in the beginning, because you're going to fall into one of a couple of categories. I mean, you're either going to have no information at all. Now, that's pretty rare for most people who are licensed or professionals. I mean, because there is a certain amount of public information that's already out there, whether you want it to or not. Most of it is kind of name, rank, and serial number. It's your office address, it's your name, it's your phone number. I mean, it's kind of, your Yellow Pages listing kind of stuff.
You may be surprised what's there.
And there's all different kinds of online companies that are, we call them data aggregators. They kind of surf the net, look for everything related to a particular person or professional, and they kind of pull it all into one entry, a little post. So there's a fair amount of that. But that's pretty neutral information. Right. There are people who are already in a more advanced position where they've already been working on this. They've got a website, they might have a blog, they have some active content. So you might have good stuff, you might have neutral stuff, you might have no stuff, in which case you're a blank slate, and that's a place we can start building on. Or you may have negative information that kind of puts us into emergency mode and have to deal with that right away.
Right. So now, once we understand the landscape, then we proceed in the phase that we call define. And what are we doing there?
And there we're coming back to this Malcolm Gladwell kind of concept of saying, all right, we know you're an expert if you're a professional. We know that you have gone through some advanced training, but what we want to do is really define what that expertise is, because we don't want you to settle for your professional category. That's just too much of still being a commodity. I mean, we don't want you to just be an internal medicine physician or a real estate attorney, and I'm already shaving down into going from attorney to real estate attorney. Right. But we want to go beyond that. We want to find a way to tell a story about you that makes you unique and irreplaceable to your clients. And that's the real goal of this define section.
And I'm sure you have lots of friends that you might recommend, and you think, well, if they don't come to me in my specialty, sure, they can go over here to Bob or Sally. But let's face it, your paycheck, the security of your family, your relaxation time is dependent on those people coming to you. So you want to make sure that you really can define who you are so that we can then build the program to go out and make sure it says that out on the internet.
Right, and that's the thing, is that we all may have multiple areas of expertise, but the thing is, we want to define down the ability to say, if your name is Joe Smith, we want to define the category that says, Joe Smith is the only guy I can go to for this problem.
Right.
Susan Johnson is the go-to person for fill in the blank. And that's what we want to drill so deep down. I mean, Charlie often says, what is it? An inch wide, 20 miles deep.
20 miles deep. That's exactly what we want to make sure we do for you.
You may have multiple areas, but what we would actually say in terms of building an online identity is you want to pick the one that you can drill the deepest into. Then over time, you can build multiple online identities, multiple sort of silos of expertise, where you can kind of drill in. Because as we'll talk about later, online, people want to know that you're speaking to them individually, not to a group. So you got to drill down to that really tight definition of what your expertise is.
And here in our define area, in the phase of define, you wouldn't start out on a trip without having some idea where you're going. Oh, I'm just going to go to the airport and board any airplane and I'm going to stay for an indeterminate amount of time. Well, some people do. Right?
Yeah.
Some people do. I know it sounds
You
romantic.
go wandering. You know,
You might.
What's that Australian term? You go on a walkabout.
Yeah, you
you
can do a
drop your life
walkabout.
and you take a year to go just meandering
Anywhere they want to say.
Professionally, not such a good.
That's not such a good idea. So that's what we're doing here. We're defining exactly what we want that end result to be, so that when someone searches for you, this is what they're going to find.
Right.
So it's a very important phase for us to lay out the blueprint for where we take you during this create your own legend now.
Right, and to go back to where we started by asking the question, what do you look like to the public online right now in that assessment phase? Now we're saying, what do you want to look like when someone searches for you? And then we're going to map out the blueprint of how we're going to craft the messages and craft the media platforms that are going to allow you to make that happen, so that when someone goes to that Google search window, types in the words that you want to dominate, you're the person that shows up.
You're definitely the person that shows up.